Tonight, a mother is pleading for help after her teenage daughter was shot and killed on Valentine's Day. And we have learned this is one of several shootings involving teens in Houston this month. The latest shooting happening at a party near the South Beltway. Hours later, friends rushed the girl to an urgent care off FM 1960. Aniela Ruiz with the story.
Well, the mother said she was supposed to be planning her daughter's graduation. Instead, she's planning her funeral. We've pulled numbers, and since February 1st, 8 teens have been shot in the Houston area, and 4 of them have died.
Before Valentine's Day became a date tied to questions and silence, there was a girl simply living her life. Her name was Mariah Alatorre, and she was 17 years old. To the people who loved her, she was not a headline or a case number. She was a daughter, a friend, a teenager still figuring out who she wanted to be. Mariah lived in the Pearland area. Like many teens her age, she balanced school, friendships, and plans for the future. She had routines. People knew where she usually went and who she usually spent time with. To her family, she was someone they worried about in the normal way parents worry, nothing more, nothing less. Valentine's Day was approaching, and it didn't feel dangerous. It felt ordinary. For teenagers, days like that are often about being around friends, laughing, and feeling grown. A house party didn't sound unusual. It didn't sound like something that would change everything. No one wakes up on a day like that expecting it to be the last time they see someone they love. Mariah left home that day believing she would come back. Her family believed that too. There were no warnings that stood out, no signs that would later make sense in hindsight. Just another night, another plan, another promise of coming home. That's the hardest part of stories like this. Before everything breaks apart, life looks normal, quiet, familiar. When people talk about what happened next, it's easy to forget who Mariah was before that night. But her story doesn't start with violence. It starts with a young life still in progress, still unfolding, still full of time that hadn't been used yet. And that makes everything that follows heavier. The party took place near Brookside Village, not far from where Mariah lived. It was the kind of gathering many teenagers attend. Music, people coming and going, a crowded house filled with noise and movement. There were no clear rules, no clear supervision, just a lot of young people sharing the same space. At some point during the night, things shifted. Exactly how it happened has been hard to pin down. Different people said different things. Stories didn't always match. What is known is that a gun was fired and Mariah was shot. In moments like that, panic takes over. People stop thinking clearly. Fear spreads faster than facts. Instead of calm decisions, there is confusion. Instead of calling for help, people hesitate. This is where the story begins to slow down, minute by minute. Mariah was hurt, but instead of calling 911 right away, people around her made another choice. They decided to put her in a car and drive her for medical help. No ambulance. No emergency responders at the scene. That decision would later raise painful questions. As the car moved farther away from the house, time kept passing. Every mile mattered. Every delay mattered. But no one that night seemed to fully understand what those minutes would mean later. The house where the party happened began to empty. The scene changed. People left. Evidence was no longer untouched. And the truth, whatever it fully was, started to slip through gaps created by fear and silence. For Mariah's family, none of this was known yet. They weren't there. They weren't getting updates. They were still living in the before, unaware that everything was already moving into the after. What happened inside that house was only one part of the story. What happened next would become just as important. Instead of going to the closest hospital, Mariah was driven miles away to an urgent care facility. This part of the story is where many people stop and ask the same question. Why? Urgent care centers are not designed for emergencies like gunshot wounds. They are meant for minor injuries, for situations where time is not slipping away so quickly. When Mariah arrived, staff there realized they could not help her and arranged for her to be transferred again. By then, more time had passed. Time is quiet, but it is powerful. It doesn't announce itself. It just keeps moving forward. Eventually, Mariah was taken to a hospital. Doctors did what they could. But later, she died from her injuries. By the time law enforcement was fully informed, the trail had grown cold in places it shouldn't have. The original scene was no longer intact. Witnesses had time to talk among themselves. Stories had time to change. For investigators, this created challenges. For Mariah's family, it created pain layered with confusion. They weren't just grieving. They were trying to understand decisions that didn't make sense. Why wasn't help called right away? Why drive past closer hospitals? Why wait? These questions didn't come from anger alone. They came from love. From the natural human need to understand how something so ordinary could turn into something so final.
He would have been alive.
Tonight, Mariah Alatorre is still in shock, struggling to understand how her 17-year-old daughter, Mariah, was killed over the weekend.
Disturbing, something that I never thought I would go through or see.
She said Mariah had gone to a party with friends, but something was off.
When I kept texting and calling her, she wouldn't answer me.
She said it wasn't like Mariah, so she reached out to one of her friends that was also at the party.
And she answered, and she texted me. And then I was like, okay, everything's good, but it just something didn't seem right.
Mariah's mother, Mariah Alatorre, began speaking publicly not long after. Her words were not about blame at first. They were about understanding. She asked questions many parents would ask. She wanted to know who made the decisions that night. She wanted to know why help wasn't called sooner. She wanted to know if things could have been different. Her voice carried a simple message. Something went wrong, and it needs to be explained. As time passed, the lack of clear answers only deepened the silence. Investigations moved slowly. Legal complications arose, especially because many involved were young. The case became tangled in uncertainty. Yadi didn't ask for attention. She asked for truth. She spoke for her daughter when her daughter no longer could. And in doing so, she gave a voice to many families who have stood in the same place, waiting for clarity that never fully comes. Today, Mariah's case remains one that people still talk about quietly. Not because it is loud, but because it is unresolved in ways that matter. It is a story about a young life lost, but also about decisions made in fear, moments delayed, and consequences that cannot be undone. It raises questions about responsibility, about how panic can change outcomes, and about how quickly normal life can collapse. Most of all, it is a reminder that the moments after a crisis matter just as much as the crisis itself. Mariah's story doesn't end with answers. It ends with questions still hanging in the air, questions her family continues to live with every day. And that may be the hardest truth of all. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe for more videos.